Hey friends, Tasshin here. I've been sitting on a rant for a little while about something that I wanted to share with you. I've been thinking about this phrase, qualitative impact or qualitative benefit. A lot of our culture is optimizing for quantitative impact or quantitative benefit. There's a lot of emphasis in the economy especially, but also in other areas on being able to measure outcomes and how many people bought your product or how much money did you make or other variables that can be measured. And if something can be measured, people want to optimize it. Can we maximize it or make the product as cheap as possible or whatever it is? And that's all well and good. And probably I could stand to get better at that. That's actually one of my goals for next year, is to do some more measurement in different ways and track how different numbers and projects impact each other. But there's also this whole other way of looking at benefit or impact that really matters to me that I would call qualitative benefit. And of course, I'm not the first person to come up with this. There's, swaths of people doing user research or customer research or other things like that talk about this, but I want to just share how I think about this. So, I don't know, just to start with, if you kind of look at your own life and you think about the things that have changed your life, whatever that was, if you look back on that, like I think of conversations that I had or people that I met or meditation techniques I did or a passage in a book that I read or a tweet that I read or some video that I watched. And I kind of have a sense of how those things impacted me. Like, oh, when I met this person, I learned this thing and then I decided to do this other thing. Or, something I've been thinking a lot about in the last couple of years is when I was 17, I was applying to colleges and I was kind of overwhelmed at the whole process and finding out which school to go to and what the different schools were. And I just didn't really know how to decide what to do or where to go. And my mom handed me a copy of Colleges That Changed Lives because her alma mater, Earlham, was in that book by Lauren Pope. I think there's a new edition of it that's been edited by someone else. But in any case, I read that book and I just so fell in love with the schools that were mentioned there and narrowed it down to a few that I was really strongly considering and ended up going to St. John's College. And that one decision to read that book and later to apply to St. John's and to go to St. John's changed my life. That opened up so many things, not least of which that I started meditating at St. John's and later decided to go to a monastery. And that was because I went there and because of the things I was exposed to and the people I met. And that changed my life. And how do you really measure that? Like a book read, or what makes that book different than another book? Or how do you really measure that that was the right book at the right time for me? You can't really. And when I look back at my life, there's a series of these kinds of things where I had a conversation with someone, or I tried some experience, or I heard someone say something in passing, or whatever it was. And that's the thing that changed my life, that had a really positive impact on me, that was noticeable. There was a before and after. And, one example of this that I've also been thinking about is sometimes on my podcast, I'll have these conversations that change my life. And I know which conversations really had a huge disproportionate impact on me. And, there's 5, 10, 20 of them that really irrevocably changed my life. And I kind of have a sense of that and which ones were which. And, many of them I learned so much and benefited in different ways, but there's some that just had an outsized impact. And I've been collecting some of those clips of parts of my podcast in a playlist on YouTube that's like excerpts from the Reach Truth podcast, which is the name of my podcast. It's a video podcast, so you can also get it on audio. But anyway, like a lot of those clips are clips of moments that changed my life for a very specific reason. I just made a clip, for example, of my first podcast conversation with Visa. I had met Visa before in person. It wasn't my first time talking to him, but it was the first time he was on my podcast. And in the middle, I asked this question that was effectively like, why are you writing books? How does that fit into everything you're doing? And it was a genuine question. I didn't really know the answer. It wasn't an accusatory, why are you doing this? This doesn't make sense. It was just like, hey, I don't see how this fits into everything you're doing. Especially because he was sort of self-publishing books. And at the time, he was really agonizing over writing what's now called Introspect, his second self-published book. And I was just like, how does this all fit together? And when he answered that question, I remember in that moment, somewhere in the 5, 6, 7 minutes that he answered, I was like, oh, I should really talk about loving kindness. I should write a book about loving kindness. I'm teaching it a lot these days, and I keep talking to people about it, and I find myself saying the same things over and over again. And I haven't really heard one person talk about it exactly the way that I'm talking about it. You know, it's a traditional technique, and a lot of people have written about it or talked about it, but I think I have something valuable to add here and a different perspective, and I should write that down. I should write down the things that I keep saying in these conversations and make a book out of it. And so over the next year or so, I wrote the book that's now called The Path of Love. Since then, Mary and I co-authored a book, The Path of Empowerment, that's about that aspect of my life's work. And just this year, I published The Path of Curiosity, that's about that aspect of my life's work. So there's kind of a trilogy now: The Path of Love, The Path of Curiosity, and The Path of Empowerment. And I've also written some other books I've written some novels, and that I had worked on book projects before, but I hadn't written and self-published a whole book like that. I published a collection of essays, I think in 2010, that I self-published, and there were some other book projects I worked on that were with other people. But yeah, that conversation with Visa, that 6 or 7 minutes of him answering that question changed my life. It had a disproportionate effect on me for the amount of time that he spent answering. And you know, even listening to it, you can't really tell just watching my face that it's changing my life. But I remember having that thought, oh, I should write a book about this. And that led to other causal impacts that have been tremendously beneficial to me. So I think a big part of learning to work with qualitative impact is just in your own mind and your own experience, your own life, noticing how things impact you. I have a tweet about this that says, be a student of causality. Notice what inspires you, and track that and say thank you to the people that inspire you. It's a little bit more long-winded than that, but that's sort of the idea, is become a student of causality and watch how things affect you. Oh, this affected this caused this, and what effects that had, because often there's second-order effects and third-order effects, and different causes combined to have different effects and that sort of thing. And just really watching that. And then in your own projects and the projects that you do and the work that you do, noticing how you can have a qualitative impact on people through your life and through your work, and being open to that. Sorry about that. A friend stopped by to say hi. Anyway, yeah, knowing that you and your projects can have this kind of qualitative impact on people, and planning for that, designing for that, choosing projects that you think will have a qualitative impact. I just know in my heart from my own experience that meditation techniques, and in particular loving kindness meditation, can have a real big impact on someone. It can change the way you relate to your emotions, to your heart, to your feelings. It can help you to treat yourself more in a kinder way, help you to treat others in a kinder way, and eventually it makes the world a kinder place, and it makes you happier all the time while you do it all along. And so every time I lead a guided meditation or share something about loving kindness or whatever it is, I know that can have even an enormous qualitative impact on one person's life. And then that's going to ripple out to affect even more people and touch all of the people that are in their lives. If they're even just a little bit happier, a little bit kinder, that's going to ripple outwards for the rest of their life. And so, for example, I post my guided meditations in a few places, and I don't have great metrics on this right now, but it's on Anchor and it's on YouTube, and there's a Google Drive folder. You can get it on my website. But say on YouTube, I don't know, any given guided meditation that I upload there as a video, I don't know, 30, 50, 100 people listen to it, something like that. Or my podcast, something like 50 or 100 people listen to an average episode. Some are a lot more, of course. From a quantitative perspective, it's like, how impactful is this? I'm not, the Joe Rogan podcast or I'm not Sharon Salzberg, most popular loving kindness meditation teacher in the world or something. And that's fine. That's fine because this stuff is impactful, and I know that it can have that impact on people, and if it impacts even one person in a significant way, then that's worth it. And everything I do is kind of like that. All the projects I do are kind of like that. And if something I do is sort of obscure, but it touches even one person, then I'm happy about that, because that effect can just keep on going. There's this quote from Peace Pilgrim I think about all the time that I'll paraphrase right now. I'm not stating it accurately, but she says that good things just keep on going. The effects from good things just keep on accumulating and going onwards and onwards. And that negative things actually end. Bad things end. The effects of bad actions eventually end. But not good things. They just vibrate on and on ceaselessly. And if that's true, that's incredible. That's just incredible. That's one of the most incredible claims she makes in my book, as I see it. And it really inspires me. I would love to ask her about that and be like, how did you know that? What in your experience points to that? That there's like an asymmetry between positive actions and their effects and negative or bad actions and their effects. That bad actions would end, their causal chains would end, whereas good actions would not. Anyway, it's inspiring to me. And I think it's fine to consider quantitative impact. And, I'm aware of, for example, how many people listen to my loving kindness meditations or my podcast, or how many people download my books, or how many people follow me on Twitter or whatever it is. There's nothing wrong with tracking those numbers or even trying to get them up, because that matters for most projects, just practically to consider it. But it's not the only thing, and in fact it's for me it's secondary to that qualitative impact, and that's what I really care about. I really care about projects having a significant positive qualitative impact on people's lives, and that's what I want to have spread. I talk about maximum deep benefit, which means benefiting as many beings as possible, as deeply as possible. And you really need both. I don't want to just optimize for scale and sacrifice depth. I want to make sure I've got the depth first, the real impact, and then from there work out how to scale. So that's actually going to be kind of a big goal for me next year, and certainly in the coming years, is how to scale upwards and have a bigger impact. I know that the things I'm doing can help people, and I want to make them available to even more people. But that's how I think about qualitative impact, and hope it inspires you to see your own projects in a new way, and to make different choices about how you approach your projects, not just optimizing for the quantity of people impacted or how many people purchase it or how much money you make or whatever it is, even though that's fine to pay attention to, but also really considering that qualitative impact. And in a way, maybe this video will have a qualitative impact on your life. So anyway, thanks for listening. Cheers, and sending you love.